good morning, good afternoon, and/or good evening. If you're seeing this video, chances are that you've applied to join the Art of Warfare's Arma 3 division. If this is the case, welcome. In this video, I will demonstrate how to reconfigure your controls and settings to align more closely with the recommended controls and settings our unit employs. As a quick disclaimer, these are recommended, not mandatory, but we use them for good reason. Even if you are familiar with Arma, I'd recommend watching this anyway to check for any conflicting controls. First and foremost, press the Escape key, click on Configure, and click on Add-on Options. Here you will see something which I intend to reference quite often, the add-on drop-down. This is present in the controls setup later as well, so please take note and remember it. The first setting we will change is found under the ACE interaction menu. Here you can scroll down until you see two nearly identical sections. Interaction menu and Interaction menu self. Our goal is for these to have identical settings. Please ensure that the Always Display Cursor for Interaction setting is enabled under both sections. Next, ensure that all the other settings are unchecked and/or disabled, as you can see on the video. Once we've finished with the ACE interaction menu, you can proceed to the next add-on. Go back to the drop-down and look for the add-on DUI Squad Radar. There's only one setting to change here. The third setting from the top should be Show Bearing. Click on the drop-down and set it to Always. This will ensure that your current bearing is always displayed just above your radar at the bottom of your screen. Now, having completed both these steps, we're going to navigate out of the Settings menu. But be careful. Pressing Escape or clicking Cancel at any point will undo any changes you've made thus far. Carefully press OK to apply your current settings. With this stage complete, we will now move on to the Controls section. Similar to the previous section, I will walk through this step by step, but a little bit faster this time. The quick explanation of why we recommend these controls. Press Escape again, and navigate to Configure and then to Controls. Notice the Configure Add-ons button on the bottom right. This is to switch between base game controls and add-on controls. We'll first be covering all the recommended base game controls. You should start off looking at the Common Controls screen, as is evident by the drop-down at the top. Here we'll be looking for a control called Last Help. Scroll all the way down and you should see it near the top of the menu. Once you've clicked on it, you should select the H keybind under the menu and click Delete. This will unbind the control. We do this as the Last Help action serves us no purpose and conflicts with other recommended controls. Remember to press OK once you've completed this step to return to the previous menu. Next, we'll be navigating to the Weapons Controls menu. click on the Show menu and find Weapons. Here, we'll be looking for the Throw keybind. This should be bound to G by default. We recommend deleting the keybind completely, or making it a much more complex keybind. This button will instantly throw a grenade, and in a milsim or semi-milsim setting, this can have disastrous consequences for you and your fellow soldiers. Rest assured, there are other ways to throw a grenade, much more safely. Once again, please remember to press OK once you've completed this. Our final control to modify, under the base game section of the controls, can be found under the Zeus Controls section. The very first control is simply called Zeus, and should be bound to Y by default. Our goal is to make this keybind harder to press. When playing in a regular operation, pressing this keybind will send a very loud ping to all active Zeuses. This is necessary, but can be quite disruptive if done by mistake. I'd recommend something like double tapping Y, or something else similarly complex. This should still be reachable, but not likely to be pressed by accident. Finally, press OK. At this point, we'll be switching over to the Configure Add-ons section of the controls. Press the button in the bottom right, next to the OK button. The default keybinds under the ACE Common section should be sufficient, but let's review a few important ones. First is the Action Point Finger At. This allows you to create a marker on your screen that other people in close proximity will be able to see. The default binding for this should be fine, but most older members of our unit will most likely have this bound to the F1 key. Feel free to add this as an additional keybind just in case. Next is the Wipe Goggles binding. Similar to the previous control, most older members will have this bound to F2. I would encourage newer members to add F2 to the key bindings, just in case they forget and need to ask, as the response will most likely be press F2. Finally, we'll verify at the bottom of this section that Open Medical Menu is bound to H and Peek Medical Info is bound to Control H. Next, go back to the drop-down and look for the ACE Movement menu. Very simply, we want to bind the Vehicle Quick Mount button to something easy to press and non-disruptive. I recommend the left Alt key. This will conflict with the key to look round, but as long as you simply tap this key while looking at a vehicle, this should speed up the boarding process significantly. Moving on to the next section, we'll be looking for the ACE Weapons menu. The third control from the top should be Clear Jam. This is used in case your weapon malfunctions and you need to unjam it. My advice is to bind this to the R key. This will mean that whenever your weapon needs to be unjammed or reloaded, you simply need to press R. Either way, your problem will be solved. The next menu we'll be looking for is simply called CTAB. You should notice right away that we have a conflict of keybinds here. Members in our unit typically carry a CTAB device, such as a microdagger or Android device. These can be used as a minimap-like function, and you are typically required to carry one, even if you don't use it, as this will allow leadership to find you on the map. Rebind all three of the top controls to their equivalent variants of U. For example, toggle main interface should change to just U. Toggle secondary interface should change to Control and U. Toggle main tertiary should change to Alt U. The final menu we'll be looking at is simply to ensure that a particular control is bound correctly. Look for the Enhanced Movement Rework menu. New recruits are encouraged to have this button bound to Shift V. That brings us to the end of this guide. Please remember to press OK to apply your controls. And finally, welcome to the Art of Warfare.